We still have a few people coming in, but I'm not going to say anything terribly important, so I'll get started. Welcome to the 2014 ASPPO annual meeting. And we're having it here in the acoustically improved Sea Pines Country Club, which for those of you who have been here before, this is a great improvement. You can actually hear. I first understand that we have a quorum. Is that correct, Mr. Secretary? Thank you, sir. And with that, the meetings of the 2013 annual meeting on May 13th are in the handout. First order of business is to have those approved. Is there a motion to approve them? Second? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The second item is the ASPPO nominating committee, and this is the committee that interviews potential nominees for the board. The bylaws say that ASPPO will appoint 3 members, one of whom is the president, and 2 others elected by the board to be the ASPPO members. This was brought up in the March meeting, discussed, we had a vote on it, and the 3 members for the 2014 election cycle will be Paul Crunkleton, Charlie Miner, and myself. Any of you who have any interest in serving on these boards, we would love to have you come talk to us, tell us about your talents, let us tell you about what we need, and we encourage you to do this. It's sometimes it's a somewhat taxing job, but it's a good thing to do, and I know a lot of you, and there's some talented people out there. So I'd encourage you to stand up on your feet and sing for your supper and see if you can get yourself elected. I would next like to introduce the 2014 board, and I'm going to start with Paul Crunkleton. Why don't you stand up, Paul? Paul is a kind of a redshirt freshman. He came in the middle of the year when Ken Lauer moved, and he has been serving ably since then. We were so happy to get him. We appointed him the ARB liaison and also put him on the garbage committee. And thank you for doing that. Our next true freshman is Charlie Miner. Is Charlie here? Oh, okay. And he too got assigned to garbage detail, and Charlie and Paul and that group did a great job handling the situation that the town of Hilton Head had left us in when they parted ways with Republic. And I believe that that group is going to reconvene in the fall and look at the prospect of perhaps having some preferred providers so we can cut down on the truck traffic in the plantation. The second new member, a true freshman, is Michael Tucker. Yes, you have to stand up. Michael somehow got himself named to be the head of the search committee. So on July 1, you're either going to be the toast of the town or seriously in the doghouse. So we're pulling for the former, but we'll see. And last is Mark Griffith. Mark always has a smile on his face, so we put him on the beautification committee and made him treasurer. That'll toughen him up. Dave Borghese is a second-year guy. He got our numbers straight, and now he's trying to get CSA's bookkeeping straight, which is a source of many amusing anecdotes. Joe Kernan is not here. Joe is the guy who keeps the traffic issue in front of ASPPO, and he also is the fellow who gets the call when the waste treatment plant starts giving out some emissions that aren't that pleasant. And Finally, our seniors, we have Charlie Ryan, of course, who became president of CSA and went over to the dark side, and we haven't seen much of him since. And Chris Whitnell, our vice president, and Chris has the wonderful talent of being the individual who says, do we have authority to do this, and are we doing it the right way? And since we are fiduciaries for people who have $5 billion invested in this community, I think we owe it to you to follow the rules. I also want to recognize and thank our 3 outgoing ASPPO members, Christine Beal, here, not here, Rob Marsack. Rob was the president of ASPPO before me, which means he had to put up with me, but I don't have to put up with him. And finally, Bob Mang, who's back in the very back, so we'll give you the Seminole chop goodbye. And good luck at Florida State. You guys inherited some problems, and you handled them well, and we really appreciate the service you gave. And I'm just forgetting about my audio-visual here. ASPPO is not a committee-heavy organization. Paul, as I said, is the ARB liaison. I do covenant enforcements, which basically means that I interact with Dave Risk, who's our land use monitor. Chris Whitnell is continuing on the density unit saga. And are we close to getting an answer? We're close to getting an answer. You heard that first here. Mark is our finance guy. I'm the ASPPO representative on the short-term rental committee. Beverly Serrell co-chairs that with me. Paul, as I said, was on the recycling and trash committee, and Joe Kernan has the water treatment issues. And I am relatively sure that at the May meeting, a committee will be formed to deal with traffic issues. So that is definitely on the radar, and it's something we're going to be talking about. I have received a lot of comments, questions, real good advice, counsel from many of you. I really appreciate it. It has made my job much easier. I get the message that the property owners want an ASPPO that is active and involved and independent and transparent, and we're working on that. I'd encourage you to come to the meetings. They are open. You're welcome to come. And in particular, I'd like to say that to those of you who are members of property owner associations, one thing we're finding is that those are like incubators, and we get a lot of good ideas that originated in the POAs, get passed up to us. So that's a great asset for us. Finally, I want to thank Greg and Jerry for letting us use the facility today. And last, Jeannie, where are you, Jeannie? There you are. And the folks from CSA who make our job literally possible. Thanks a lot. And Charlie will now take over and do the CSA meeting. Did I use them all? I'm sorry. I should have followed my program. This is our balance sheet. The true cash that we have is around $475,000. This is the year end. The reason the final figure is $568,000, as I understand accounting, and that's suspect, is that there's $85,000 that were dues that were received for 2014 in 2013, so that money needs to be credited to the 2014 year as opposed to 2013. But in any event, we have roughly $475,000 on hand, and last year we ran about a $20,000 surplus. We cut down on some expenses, and so ASPPO is fiscally sound, and look forward to serving you for another year. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 2014 annual meeting of the Community Services Associates. The agenda is on the screen: approval of last year's meeting minutes, announcement of the nominating committees, the Board of Directors report, the financial overview, the adjournment, and then we'll have the Q&A after the meeting ends. I will ask CSA Secretary Carolyn Adams if there is a quorum present. The quorum is here. The minutes of the 2013 CSA annual meeting are in the 2014 annual report. Is there a motion for approval? A second. Discussion. Those who approve, please say aye. Those who disapprove, please say nay. The ayes have it, and I declare that the 2013 CSA annual meeting minutes are approved. Moving on to the nominating committee, in accordance with the CSA bylaws, we announce the members of the Class A 2014 nominating committee. They are Rob Marsack, Chairman, Mark Griffith, Charlie Miner. The Class B members are John Trunk, Chairman, Mark King, and Mark Yarborough. In addition to those nominated by the committee, candidates may be announced. Let's see, did I get the resort in here? In addition to those nominated by the committee, candidates may be nominated by petition. Class A candidate petitions need to be signed by 50 residential property owners, and the candidate must be willing and able to serve. Class B candidate petitions need to be signed by 3 commercial owners, and the candidate needs to be willing and able to serve. The bylaws require that nominations are to be received by October 1, 2014. However, we're asking all candidates to have their resumes into Jeannie Pierce at CSA by September 1, 2014, in order to have enough time to include those resumes in the printed ballot that will be mailed to all property owners November 1, 2014. Petition candidates also will need to have their petitions presented to CSA by that date, September 1, if they wish to participate in the candidates forum and have their resumes included in the mailed ballots. So the September 1 date is simply a printing deadlines. I encourage any Sea Pines residential property owner interested in serving on the board to contact a committee member. Our community has a great depth of talent in many different sectors, and your expertise is needed. You'll greatly enjoy the experience. It's a lot of work, but you'll greatly enjoy the experience. I'd like to recognize our outgoing directors and current directors and list our committee members. In the interest of time, let's hold our applause until they've been introduced. Please stand, and if you're comfortable with it, remain standing as you are introduced if you are in attendance. This gives everyone a look at the people who are serving them and our community, and I think that's important. The outgoing directors are Angie Greenfield. Is Angie here? Mike Hellman. Bob Mang, who served 2 years as president and did a great job for this community. Craig Ostergaard. And then the current Class A board members are David Borcasi, again if you can stand, Mark Griffith, for the second time stand, Mike Jordan, Joe Kernan, Rob Marsack, Charlie Miner, Charlie Ryan, Michael Tucker, Chris Woodnell. The commercial members are Mark King, Don Sigmund, John Trunk, and Mark Yarborough. Sea Pines Resort members are Carolyn Adams, Steve Birdwell, Steve's in Italy, good for him. Kerry Corbett, Kerry's with Pete Dye today looking at Heron Point, so he can't be here. And Scott Richardson. Scott, thank you. Here are your committees. These committee chairpersons have done tremendous and voluminous work, and their effort is at the heart of the organization. Scott Richardson, Scott's the ARB liaison. Dave Borghese is Chairman of Finance. Kerry Corbett, Chairman of Gate Entry. Mike Jordan and Beverly Serrell, Short-Term Rental. Beverly, would you stand because you didn't get a chance to stand? Thank you. She's doing a great job. Charlie Miner, Waste and Recycling. Mark Griffith, Landscape and Maintenance. Michael Tucker, Long Range Strategic Planning. And Rob Marsack, Safety and Security. All these men and women I mentioned have assessed the needs of the plantation. They've worked to address those needs and attempted to forecast where future needs will be and how they will be met. They've performed in exemplary manner. And then finally, I also want to thank all the men and women of CSA who have made certain the organization works smoothly and is constantly diligent in regard to the needs of property owners, the resort, and commercial interests. So I'd like a round of applause for the dedication of past and present board members and CSA men and women. Next, I'd like to move on to the board overview. We're only going to mention a few things in this overview report because I've attempted to include all the major items in my president's letter in the annual report that you are hopefully holding. I hope you'll read it in its entirety. It covers all the major things, but some updates. First, an update on the coffee case from Rob Marsack. I might say to you that Rob has done just tremendous work in monitoring this case for CSA, and we all owe him a debt of gratitude. Rob?
I'm taller than Charlie. Yeah, and I always will be. That's right. Charlie asked me to give everyone an update, and I think it's appropriate and timely, on the coffee litigation. And I think everybody is probably generally aware of what's happened, and it is, I think, for us as a community, an unfortunate circumstance, and unfortunately, it's a situation that has happened before. We got into litigation with somebody else who had connections to the community, the country club. That went on for a long time, and unfortunately, we found ourselves in litigation with a family member of folks who live in the community. That case resulted in a verdict against CSA in the amount of $6 million, some of which was punitive damages, some of which was special damages, and a very small amount was a result of actual damages. As I talk about this case, I should comment and make sure that everybody understands. Number one, my role here has been to coordinate the case. I am not litigating the case. My responsibility is to coordinate counsel with the board and with the executive committee and keep leadership informed in terms of what's going on, what the strategy is, and how the case is progressing. As with all litigation, and with many matters of legal import, most of what we know is privileged and confidential. We know a lot more than we can tell you because it is in litigation. It's an active dispute. As we speak, there may be members of the Coffee family here, and in fact, Maureen Coffey's counsel is a residential property owner in Sea Pines as well. So there's obviously some sensitivity, and one has to be very careful in terms of what they say with respect to the litigation. But I want to give you some notion of where it is and where we expect it to go. First of all, I want to be sure that everyone understands that we do have insurance. The insurance is stacked, as they say, so there are different amounts that are attributable to different insurance companies. And for purposes of this claim, there are essentially 4 different insurers. The first layer of insurance is $1 million, and that's with Philadelphia Insurance. The second layer of insurance, which is on top of the $1 million, is another $1 million with a company called Arch Insurance. The third layer of insurance, which is on top of the first 2, is $3 million on top of the first $2 million, and that's held by CNA, which gets you to $5 million. There's another $15 million of insurance on top of that, which is attributable to Chubb, which is a division of Federal Insurance Company, and that is $15 million, and that's excess of $5 million. So we have a total of approximately, to keep things simple, $20 million in coverage. After the verdict was rendered, as is the case with most litigation, reservation of rights letters were issued by the various insurers, and they raised various exceptions to the policy with respect to the claim. I should tell you that this is very common. It is typical in adverse outcomes. And frankly, the reservation of rights letters are issued before there is really much information about what happened or how it happened. And so they're frequently standardized letters raising a variety of different exclusions that may or may not apply. We retain counsel to respond to those and to interact with the insurers so that we could sort of keep all the ducks in a row. I should mention to you that while punitive damages are normally not a covered risk in the state of South Carolina, they are a covered risk. So the punitive damage award is part of the insurance claim, if indeed there is one. The insurers have assumed the defense, and they have provided us with counsel. At the current time, we have 4 different law firms involved in this case. We take it seriously. They take it seriously, and we've been successful in being able to secure excellent counsel. And I'll tell you who they are. First is the McNair Law Firm, and they're used for very limited purpose at this time, principally coordinating with the insurers and communicating with the insurers' developments. We have special counsel, John Nichols, and John Nichols is in Columbia. He is a well-known and well-regarded appellate counsel, and he's our special counsel overseeing the matter on behalf of CSA directly. The insurers secured 2 different law firms on our behalf. One is the McAngus, Goodluck, Corey office. There's about 150 lawyers in that firm. There are 10 different offices. Weston Adams III is lead counsel there with the assistance of Helen Heiser. The 4th law firm that's involved is Sweeney, Wingate, and Barrow. Mark Barrow is lead counsel in that, and he's assisted by Bill Calhoun on our behalf. So we have a number of lawyers involved in this. A lot of work has been done. The matter has been taken very seriously and is being actively litigated in the South Carolina Court of Appeals. At this point, the matter has been fully briefed. As many of you may know, it was a fairly lengthy trial, fairly complicated trial. A number of exceptions were taken to some of the things that happened at the trial, and it is under consideration by the Court of Appeals, and at this point we don't know when, or frankly, as I will explain in a moment, if the South Carolina Court of Appeals will hear the case. In recent weeks, we directed counsel to file a petition to certify the case to the South Carolina Supreme Court. Counsel advised us that this was an appropriate action to take. They believe it's a case of some significance. They also believe that there are a number of very important legal issues that ultimately will be addressed by the South Carolina Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has not taken any action on that. It was filed relatively recently. We don't have a timeline in terms of when they will take action on that. I should tell you also, there have been some, and I'll call it this, I'll characterize it this way, there have been discussions about having discussions about settlement. And basically we've had some very informal discussions about formulating a means to have an earnest discussion about whether this case can be settled in some fashion. It remains to be seen where that will take us, but we obviously will keep our eye on it. In closing, I want to make it clear that everybody should be aware of how fortunate we are as a community. We have some attorneys on the board. They've weighed in, and as lawyers do, sometimes they agree and sometimes they don't. Having managed law firms for a good long time, I can tell you that usually they disagree. So that's just the way lawyers are. We also have a number of people that have been involved in their careers in risk management and claims experience. And we're also very, very fortunate to have among our board members Scott Richardson, who's a residential property owner and is one of the resort's representatives, and Scott has a very, very extensive insurance background and is a former commissioner of insurance for the state of South Carolina. So I can assure you that those various members of the board are very much attuned to the litigation and have a good understanding of what's going on and where this will take us, and we're on top of it. In the end, our council remains cautiously optimistic. Litigation is a very, very complicated and dicey proposition, and it's hard to predict outcomes. They believe there are serious errors in the case. Obviously, Maureen Coffey and her counsel believe otherwise. But we'll keep you posted and keep you informed as things develop. Charlie?
Thanks, Rob. I'd like to add or update a few things. The national search for a new CSA executive director is going well. We have interviewed 3 prime candidates after narrowing a list of over 100 prospects to those 3 candidates, and we feel we are pretty near the time when we can make a decision. We are comfortable that we will have the position filled by July 1, or I guess I should say we continue to hope that we will have the position filled by July 1, but we feel pretty good about it. We've engaged the firm of Roger Dyer, professional engineers, to review the town of Hilton Head traffic studies regarding the impact of additional traffic at Sea Pine Circle resulting from the proposed USCB campus on Office Park Road. Mr. Dyer worked for many years as a traffic engineer for the South Carolina DOT and also for the city of Charleston. He's done extensive traffic survey work for the town of Hilton Head. I'd like to mention that the Architectural Review Board has at this time 3 vacancies. So if anyone is interested in serving, please see Mike Jordan or me. We really need to fill those positions. It's a lot of work. They meet every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, and it's generally a couple of hours, and then they go out and do on-site observation of work that is being done. But it's a very interesting work, and I think you would enjoy it. So if you have interest, please see us. The recent heritage deluge that poured rain during the PGA tournament left in its wake 2 items that need to be addressed. One, it was an incredibly heavy rain. It did major damage to parking lots throughout the plantation. The damage has to be assessed and resolved, and toward that end, consultants are now reviewing the lots affected, and we'll soon know the steps that are needed to repair the damage and what the cost might be. We're hopeful that the PGA tournament might cover some of those costs. Then second, the off-site parking at Honeyhorn and other locations proved that an off-site parking approach will work, giving rise to the thought that we perhaps should discuss such an arrangement with the PGA for next year's tournament. That kind of arrangement, the thinking is, might eliminate, would eliminate residual rain problems and might make it much easier for residents to come and go. Then I wanted to mention that interim executive Ward Kirby will leave us at the end of this week, having given us an extended stay beyond the time period he'd agreed to. And I would like to thank Ward for his outstanding work. Ward, would you stand wherever you are? It's been a real pleasure to work with Ward, and he certainly has done a terrific job. And once he comes back from vacation, if we can twist his arm to stay a little longer, we might try to do that also. In the interim between Ward's departure and the July 1 date, where we hope to have the new executive on board, the CSA staff will cover the waterfront, assisted by your board of directors, and will attempt to manage day-to-day operations. I've talked with Rob, and Rob and I are going to try to meet with the staff on a regular basis during that time period and hope to be able to help them with members of the board filling in where and when they can. We're able to sign checks. Toby can sign checks, and I can sign checks, so we can take care of the expenses in that way. Speaking of expenses, I'd like to move on to the financial overview. David Borghese will give that to you. So David, if you would come on up here. As David comes to the podium, I'd just like to say he's done a tremendous job in this area, and you should know, as residents of Sea Pines that we are so much better off than we were prior to the time that he took hold and took the helm. He has simply moved us to a whole new level, and we owe him a great deal of thanks.
Good afternoon. Another wonderful day in paradise. I don't know why there's a plot that I'm always the last guy before you can go there, but I'll try and make this as brief as possible. Henry Luce, the founder of Time Magazine, Sports Illustrated, and for this purpose, more importantly, Fortune Magazine, once said it's easier to teach a poet how to read a balance sheet than it is to teach an accountant to write. Nancy, my beautiful wife, will attest that I am no poet. But if you have not already, I hope you will enjoy reading the financial report in the 2013 CSA annual report, even if it was written by an accountant. The information speaks for itself, and I will be happy to address any questions you might have during the Q&A session, but I'm not going to go into great levels of detail about the financial aspects of CSA. A few brief comments, though. I would like to thank the Finance Committee members, both past and present, for their steadfast and excellent counsel. I welcome Mark Griffith, Bill Snyder, and Carolyn Adams as the newest members of our committee, all of whom have made significant contributions. CSA's 2013 financial statements have been examined by our external auditors, Elliott Davis. The auditor's opinion report is the same as it's been in prior years, essentially a clean report, and the audited financial statements are available for distribution if you care to have one. I'd like to touch on some new and revised financial information that is in the annual report. There are essentially three graphs. The first that I'd like to go through is that there is the graph of gate entry fees. We've never split this out before in our disclosures, but as you can see, we've presented a stacked bar chart that shows data of the three components. And we've done it over a 4-year period, as well as indicating the budget for 2014. The lower part of the green portion is the daily gate pass revenue. The middle portion is annual decal revenue, and the top portion is the short-term rental passes. As you can see, that for 2010, 11, and 12, the total amounts were relatively flat. The increases in 2013 and the budgeted increases for 2014 are explained in the text of the annual report. The second graph is one of current assets and cash and investments. The blue line is current assets net of current liabilities, and to me this is a very good indication of what kind of liquidity CSA has, and you can see that that line has increased over time and up to in excess of $9 million, and I believe that holds us very well indeed. The other two lines, the green line indicating our investments, principally fixed income investments, corporate investments. And you can see that the amount of investments stated at fair market value has increased over time, while cash and cash equivalents have decreased over time. So essentially what we've been able to accomplish is to utilize our cash, get it into interest-earning investments, and I think we've done a reasonably good job of that over the last couple of years. The final chart is a bar graph of our designated fund balance, which is essentially our capital asset or infrastructure reserve fund balance. And as you can see, over the last 4 years, we have had increases, which is the red portion of the bar, each and every year. So I think we've done a very good job over that period of time in making significant progress to set up our reserve funds, which are, quite frankly, for any homeowner association, very, very important relative to having the liquidity and having the financial resources to be able to sustain any downturn. Another aspect of the financial report that I'd like to bring to your attention is the 2014 budget, which is now presented in a chart format which includes comparable 2013 actual results of operation to 2013 budget, as well as the 2014 budget. And I hope that these comparisons will make it more easily to identify the changes and clearly more understandable and with greater transparencies. We've eliminated what I would consider to be the less than informative pie charts from prior years. There is a special note that I'd like to make with respect to 2014, and particularly with the budgeted amounts. The budget does call for approximately $1.4 million of capital expenditures, and that will utilize the current year's cash generated from operations. So in other words, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to make significant additions to our infrastructure reserve fund in 2014. I'd like to highlight 3 ongoing projects that the Finance Committee and the CSA staff continue to focus on for now and in the future. First was the participation of several of our members in the financial aspects of the Long Range Strategic Planning Committee. The basic question that was posed to us is, how do you deal with funding a disaster recovery? However, the issue must be placed within the context of maintaining adequate reserves for normal capital equipment replacement, major repair and repair projects, as well as any enhancements to the community for new and desired capital projects. A great example would be the Tower Beach Pavilion. As part of that effort, a group has interviewed various homeowner associations and governmental entities to determine their reserves, their intended uses for reserves, what the desired amounts are, and other philosophical considerations. I'd like to recognize Neil Fennell, Bill Snyder, and Don Sigmund for their efforts. I would consider the knowledge that we have gained through these interviews not exactly to be best practices, but they certainly provide food for thought about how we in CSA should be looking at our reserves, what the dollar amounts are, what the particular uses are, and have a cogent and well-articulated statement as to what the level and uses of these reserves should be. I kind of believe in the Pareto rule, you know, the 80-20, 80% of your revenues come from 20% of your customers, and I think it's going to apply here. I think whatever number or range of numbers we come up with, 20% will probably agree appropriate. However, the 80% will be split into 2 halves, 40% saying not enough, and 40% saying way too much. That's what makes this job very interesting. Second issue is that the CSA is a taxable entity based on the level of public revenues in excess of our allocated expenditures. CSA has been fortunate that we have not had a tax liability in recent years due to tax loss carryovers that have been and are being used. As part of the annual forecasting process, impacts of our taxable positions are estimated, and based upon preliminary calculation, it appears that we will have a tax liability in 2014 as a result of the increase of the gate revenue from $5 to $6. But beyond the one-year estimate, we recognize that reserve funds have their own tax considerations that require a much longer-term vision. In that regard, we have started working with our external accounting firm to address longer-term tax consequences to assure that we are not unknowingly placing ourselves in a disadvantageous tax position. Final point, we have reconstituted our investment subcommittee to review the policies and procedures of our substantial investments in both the operating and the designated capital replacement fund. Bill Snyder, Ed Abrams, and Mark Griffith are all taking the lead in this role, and they have excellent experience in this area. Thank you for your attention. I will return the dais back to Charlie for Q&As.
Before asking for a vote to adjourn, I once again want to thank Bob Mang, who spent 2 years in this job. It's an incredible investment of his time and talent. And he was a great mentor to me to open the door to solve some of the issues that are there and to give me guidance as I began this job. Thanks to Rob Marsack for being vice president of the organization, and for all the work and time and talent that he has put into it also. That covers the agenda. I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. After that, we'll have Q&A. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, let's open the Q&A, and Mike, you want to come up here and join me so that we can kind of go back and forth with CSA and ASPPO questions, and then there are other people in the audience that we'll draw upon also to answer some questions if it falls in their areas of expertise. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hold on.
Can you wait till we get a microphone back to you? I would remind you also that drink and food await. Yes, ma'am.
What is the basis of the coffee litigation? I'm not familiar with it. Sorry, I haven't heard about it. But what does this revolve around?
I'll just, try to give you as brief a synopsis if I can. Essentially, it involves an alleged defamation of a magistrate in the Hilton Head Court. And it involves the security department and the former director of the security department.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. Some people neighbors have asked me to ask about the beach in South Beach that was used as the alternative to Tower Beach when it was being renovated. After it was renovated and opened, the parking area was closed across over off of Braddock Bluff Drive, and now it seems to be open. So people are confused about what's the intention for the use of that.
Do you know that, Ward, do you have the answer to that? I don't know that.
It was opened as temporary parking for the dedication and ribbon cutting ceremony at Tower Beach. It was opened up on Wednesday, and I think it was closed back up on Friday. So it was just temporary for a couple of days. It will not be open this summer.
Yes, there's a hand up back here. Is that Dan?
Thank you. I guess this is really directed more to Rob and the lawyers, but I've read the annual report and I heard Rob's supplemental report here about the coffee verdict. Specifically, my question is CSA insured against this specific judgment in full?
The insurers have issued reservations of rights letters. We believe we are fully insured. We're taking every step we can to make sure that that in fact will happen. As of this point, the insurers are acting in a responsible fashion, and we're in regular communication with them as this case proceeds.
But their letters of reservation are formal inclinations. They do not intend to cover all aspects of the judgment. Is that correct?
Those are conditional depending upon whether certain exclusions apply. And typically what happens with the reservation rights letters is they issue the letters based on potential exclusion applications. And it's yet to be determined whether those exclusions apply or not.
So, for example, intentional acts or torts such as libel and slander, which is the crux of this case, are those excluded?
Well, actually, you're partially correct. Libel and slander is not per se an intentional act. Under the New York Times versus Sullivan standard that applies to public officials, the standard is knowingly or with reckless disregard. Knowing acts are obviously intentional. Reckless disregard are torturous. So it remains to be seen which applies. We are comfortable based on what a counsel has told us that there's no evidence of knowing conduct.
Well, what's the legal basis for our belief then that we are covered? Is it the insurance companies have formally told us?
I'm not going to discuss the legal basis. That's for the lawyers to discuss. I'm simply the messenger.
Well, that's
I
my,
can tell you that we have briefed it very, very extensively, and that's an issue on appeal.
that's my suggestion, is that we have, and I thought we did have, an independent counsel as of 2 years ago to
Independent
oversee the entire
Council has made
process.
reports to the board as recently as a month ago.
Independent counsel or the insurance counsel?
Independent counsel.
Someone not associated with providing corporate counsel or defending us in the case.
Our special counsel is John Nichols. He is hired by us to work and coordinate the appeal with designated counsel from the insurers.
And is it his opinion that we are covered then, under our policies?
We haven't asked him for an insurance coverage opinion.
I think we probably should. That would be my suggestion, since he is outside the process.
Well, we may or may not ask him, but we may be asking for an insurance opinion if it becomes necessary.
Thank you.
Someone way in the back of the room?
I have two questions. The entrance into Sea Pines, I'm just wondering if you can maybe move the signs back further, so it seems like the visitors always get in the wrong line, or you could raise them or something.
Yeah, I would, my response to that would be that we're always looking at ways that we might be able to improve that situation. And there are many suggestions. Some of them have been acted on and some have not. I know we've thought about adding an arrow on the road to convey where visitors are supposed to go, and property owners. Did you want to say something on that, Toby? Can you? No.
Ward and I, this week, with Frank Nettles, met. We are going to remove some signs that are there. We're going to increase some wording on some signage to hopefully eliminate the problems that we have. It has been suggested of putting pavement markings down. However, when cars stack up in the cash lane, you can't see the pavement markings. However, but you will see hopefully here in the next couple of weeks some new signage come in. The residents, what we consider to be the residence lane, is going to be considered a fast pace lane, which would mean if you have a decal, resort, passes, and resident decal, that would be, the left lane would be a fast paced lane. So we're trying to make some improvements to create a little better flow of traffic.
And my second question is for Tower Beach, the, what do I want to say, the arm, how does that work? Is it at certain times or?
Well, yes, yes and no. Toby?
The electronic arm, hopefully, through the summer, it's going to be staffed with security personnel. After that, starting January of next year, we're going to have our resident decal renewal. At that point, you're going to be issued, it almost looks like a Cross Island transponder. It's a business card that will go inside the glass of your vehicle, so when your car turns in, the arm will automatically open. So the arm after this summer will be closed for the duration. So in the winter months, we're not getting calls that there's someone that's in Tower Beach that's not supposed to be there. It will be for residents only, and we'll issue you the ID cards that will automatically open the gate. And when you come around to exit, the gate arm will automatically open back up.
And when will those be issued?
We're looking to make the purchase of those here very soon. But starting January and decal renewal of next year, if not before.
Thank you.
Someone had recommended that we put one of those arms at the main gate, and we decided that it would probably wear out very quickly, so that was not a... Yes, ma'am.
Toby, has there been any addressing to the yield sign at the Greenwood Gate, or at the Greenwood Gate? Is there any way of making that larger? Because many people just go right on through. The visitors just kind of go on through, and if you're making the turn into Club Course, sometimes it gets a little dangerous.
That issue has been addressed in the traffic study. In addition to some pavement markings, that is one problem that we currently have. The engineering solutions, I don't know if I should even bring this up because this may start something that we really don't want. The design would be to put a traffic circle in there to allow people from Club Course to get in. That's one of the designs. But I'm not saying that's the direction we're moving in. Let me clarify that.
A little bit of money.
Yes. There is, we have to take a look at what we're doing there. I'm working with some engineers, I'm making some suggestions, I'm trying to get some input from them. If you're coming off of Office Park Road to turn left into the main gate, there's some dotted line markings that we'd like to put on the pavement there so that you know that there's a turn lane to actually turn into. So we're working, trying to get some ideas of what we can do in that intersection.
Yes, in the back.
I've got a couple of questions. One, when you're walking down to Harborton from a Lighthouse Tennis, for some reason, that stretch of road, they don't pick up the trash. And my wife walks a dog every night, and she winds up taking a plastic bag with her and filling a plastic bag. And that's the only place I've seen it. I don't know if it's because of the traffic with the tennis courts or what. And maybe you could keep a little bit more of an eye on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, there's got to be an education with bikes or start giving them right away, because they do not stop for stop signs on these where they're supposed to. And one of these days, you're going to have a really bad accident, and that's going to be a liability. And I don't know what you can do with it, but it's really getting out of hand.
Well, the bike issue, as to the trash, I'm not certain, is that commercial pickup?
No, it's just somebody's got to walk along and pick it up.
Oh, okay. Litter. Well, addressing the, sorry, what was the bikes? I'm sorry. That's an ongoing issue, and it's being looked at in any number of different ways. Rob Marsack and his committee are looking at it. Frank Babel's looking at it. We discuss it, I would say, on a daily basis. I agree with you. I think it's a real problem. I think we have to do something about it. It's a dangerous situation. Someone is going to be hurt, God forbid, and we need to study what the solutions might be. The bike traffic just continues to increase and increase and increase, and I think we're at a level where we really can't handle much more, and perhaps we're beyond that. But I would take some comfort if I were you in knowing that that is a major issue that CSA is looking at, and there are a number of committees looking at that, and hopefully we can come up with some kind of a resolution. Yes, Barbara?
Concerning the bikes, I've had several problems with out-of-state licensed people, licensed plates. They'll stop for the bikes, and there may be a car behind them, and it's like everything goes on the floor.
Yeah.
Because you're going to hit them, because they're stopping for these bikes.
Yeah, no, and there are signs that say that traffic has the right-of-way, and I know the problem, and mostly it's during high season when the tourists are here because they will stop. The answer for me at least is you have to be so diligent and vigilant at all times because that's going to happen. You know, my understanding is, and Mike can correct me, but in South Carolina, we've got this rule that traffic has a right-of-way, but the minute the pedestrian steps into the highway, then the pedestrian has a right-of-way. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
Correct.
Okay. Am I correct? Okay.
Charlie.
Yes.
I have seen in another plantation on the stop signs for bicycles, they have a picture of a bicycle as well as the stop sign.
Yeah.
One thing that the short-term rental committee did this spring was we put together a brochure that was a welcome to Sea Pines, and in a nice way, here's some rules that we'd like for you to follow. And one of them, part of that expressly addresses the bicycle question, because we all experience what you experience. Somebody who's has not been here before, sees somebody crossing, they stop. It's the natural thing to do, and then you have the chain reaction afterwards. So it's being addressed in several ways, and, it's, hopefully we can get the message out.
Yes, in the back, to my left.
Issue with the bikes, excuse me, this pamphlet that you have, do you pass that out to the bike rental companies?
We do not pass it out to the bike rental companies. We pass it out to the rental agents, and we hand it out at the gate when you show up to get a pass.
Well, what about I, as a homeowner, would lend my home to someone, those people come into Sea Pines and say, use my bikes, they don't know the rules.
When they come into Sea Pines, they will get a copy of the brochure
Oh, okay.
either at the gate or the Welcome Center.
And my second question is really a safety issue. Since we live at South Beach and there's so many bikes going out of South Beach Rental, South Beach Racket Club, and I see so many children, very young children, 6 months, a year, that are on the backs of their parents' bikes, and they do not have helmets on. Is that up to the bike rental company? And I keep thinking, if there's ever an accident with that child, would Sea Pines be liable? I mean, it seems so unsafe.
That's why you buy insurance.
But what about educating the people?
Yep. But I don't think Sea Pines has any legal authority. It would be if there are state rules about, or federal rules about kids, like car seats or something, that would be where it would come from. I think what we can do is tell people what the policies are and try to get them to follow it.
Okay, thank you.
And I think Frank Babel and his group are doing a good job in trying to educate people in safety and get them to wear their helmets. I wear my helmet now. I had a bike wreck. Now I wear my helmet. Other questions? Yes.
Renters get so much information when they get on the island that I don't think they read it. Could you not put something on the large bike signs that everybody who is new to Hilton Head stops and reads the big bike signs, the directional signs, the maps? Put something large on that vehicles have the right of way.
Well, I think there are a number of things that can be done, and certainly that should be considered. And I know that Mike and Beverly are, again, looking at that in their committee. I am convinced that this is a major issue for us, the pedestrian paths and the safety of the pedestrian paths. And I can assure you that we're going to continue to look at that and do everything we can to try to solve this issue. I'm not saying that we can, because the bikes just keep coming, and people are here that are doing anything but observing where they should be riding their bikes. They're looking around. It's just fraught with the possibility of accident. But I think everybody's aware of it, and we certainly do want to try to address it and be diligent in doing that. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
This is not a question, it's an observation. The ladies that are sitting over there that work in the Sea Pines office, I want to personally let you know they are informed, they are courteous, they are professional, and I want them to receive a hand of congratulations and thank you from the Sea Pines owners. Thank you, ladies, very much.
I would certainly echo that, and I know everyone that is on the board now, or boards now, and everyone who has been on the
They're
boards
wonderful, and
will agree.
I'm in that office at least 2 or 3 times a month. They have never been discourteous. The other observation is not a patronizing one. You've made a very, very good selection in Mr. McSwain. I have heard him speak several times, and he was in competition with another high official. He was stellar in his comments. Thank you.
He's our rock star. You know, if we can be half as successful in finding the right new executive vice president as we have been in finding Toby McSwain, we'll be really over the top. So, yeah, thanks to Toby. Other questions? Is there one back here? We were trying to close up by 4 to get to the food and drink, but as long as the questions are...
This is a question that I'm addressing to the audience that's here to think about. There are 9 residential board members on each of the 2 boards. So that's 18 board members for the 2014 boards, and not 1 woman. How do we let that happen in a community that I'm sure has more than 50% women residents?
Ronnie, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Hopefully some women who are here will come forth or will try to get others to run for the board. And we've had women that have run for the board. Some have been elected, some have not. And certainly we've had women on the board that have served in an exemplary fashion, and we need more of that. So I applaud what you have to say, and hopefully we can balance the scales a little bit. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'd like to see someone really address the road going into Harbortown on Lighthouse. When you're on Lighthouse Road and you turn on Lighthouse Lane, the property owners there on the right-hand side, their property backs up to the road, on the road, not to, on the road. Their property is on the road, and you cannot see anyone who jumps out from that walkway coming from the lighthouse, going toward the new clubhouse to be. You cannot see those people when you're making that short half of a block there. And now is a perfect time to address trying to move the road over just a little bit so you could have some type of vision there on that side of the road. On the other side of the road is a walkway. So, but you got to have some type of vision better, because it's an accident waiting to happen.
I know Cliff McMackin's here from the resort. I don't know if, yeah, Cliff.
Yeah, I can comment on that. We do intend to, I believe you're talking about the view corridor beside the Cutter Court and Marriott property that allows for a view all the way to the lighthouse. And there is a pedestrian pathway that crosses Lighthouse Lane. We do intend to make some improvements to that crossing that warn vehicular operators that there are pedestrians crossing. We'll continue to look at that with CSA and get a solid game plan together on how we address that concern. But we agree that that's something that we do plan to address during the project.
Thanks, Cliff.
Come back home, the other resorts don't have bike trails, so we really need to make these bike trails, you know, we need to keep them friendly, because that's one of the main reasons that people love coming to Hilton Head. So.
All right, if it's okay with you, I think we had one more question, and we could take that if we do. If not, then I think we're good. Thank you very much for attending.